why Michael Jackson worked like he had nothing. When you think of Michael Jackson, what do you see? Probably this guy, the global icon who seemed to glide on air, a genius for whom perfection was second nature, an artist so transcendent it felt like he arrived fully formed, a gift from the cosmos. The spins, the kicks, the voice that could command stadiums and break hearts, it all looked so effortless, as if he was just born to do it. But that's a myth. It's a comfortable story we tell ourselves about genius, because the real story is far more complex, far more demanding, and infinitely more inspiring. Hook. What if the greatest entertainer the world has ever seen was driven not by confidence, but by a crippling fear of not being good enough? Even as the biggest star on the planet, with more awards than he could count, Michael Jackson trained with the desperation of someone with everything to prove. He worked like he was still that little boy from Gary, Indiana, fighting for a spot on the stage. This is the story of the intense, unseen struggle that fueled his legendary drive. It's the story of why a man who had everything worked like he had nothing. Section 1. The forging of a drive, the Jackson 5 and Joe's iron will. To understand the engine that powered Michael Jackson, you have to go back to the very beginning. Long before Neverland, before sold-out stadiums and the sequined glove, there was a tiny 2-bedroom house on Jackson Street in Gary, Indiana. This was where the most formidable work ethic in music history was forged, not by choice, but by necessity, under the unyielding pressure of one man, his father, Joseph Jackson. Joe Jackson was a crane operator who harbored his own dreams of musical stardom. When those dreams didn't pan out, he transferred that ambition onto his children. The moment Joe recognized the talent blooming in his house, especially in a 5-year-old Michael, the idea of a normal childhood evaporated. In its place came a regimen of discipline so intense it was brutal. The Jackson children, Michael especially, were thrown into grueling, relentless rehearsals. These weren't family sing-alongs. After school, and sometimes before, the boys practiced for hours on end. Joe would sit with a belt in his hand, a constant threat of punishment for any misstep or sour note. Michael later recalled this time with a mix of pain and a strange gratitude. He said he was so terrified of his father that just seeing him could make him feel sick. In a 2003 interview, he remembered hearing his mother, Catherine, scream, "Joe, you're gonna kill him. Stop it," during these sessions. The abuse was real and left permanent scars. But it also instilled something else, an unbreakable discipline and an obsession with perfection. Joe demanded flawlessness. The harmonies had to be perfect, the choreography synchronized to the split second. Michael learned early that hard work was the only currency that mattered. While his brothers sometimes defended their father's methods as a way to keep them off the streets, the impact on Michael, the youngest and most sensitive, was profound. He spent the rest of his life mourning the childhood he lost, once saying, "There was no Christmas, there were no birthdays." It was not a normal childhood. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle, and pain. This intense upbringing created a paradox that would define his entire life. On one hand, it created a deep-seated insecurity, a feeling that love and approval were conditional on a perfect performance. The voice of his father became an internal monologue he could never shut off. On the other hand, it gave him the tools to become the greatest. That environment, where every day was a battle to meet an impossible standard, is the core of why he worked like he had nothing. In his mind, he was always one mistake away from losing it all. This conditioning became the bedrock of his artistry. He was driven to accomplish incredibly difficult tasks, not just to surpass others, but to constantly surpass himself. The long hours, the relentless practice, it wasn't a choice, it was a survival mechanism. He didn't know any other way to live. So when we see the effortless grace of the adult Michael Jackson, we're not seeing a man who was born with it. We're seeing the result of thousands of hours of painful, disciplined labor that began when he was a boy. He was building the armor he would need to conquer the world, an armor forged in fear, but polished with an unyielding commitment to excellence. That little boy from Gary, Indiana, he never really left him. He was always there, just beneath the surface, pushing him, reminding him that talent alone was never enough. Section 2, the physical sacrifice, rehearsing to immortality. If the foundation of his work ethic was built at home, the dance studio was his cathedral. We all see the finished product, but most of us never saw the grueling work it took to get there. His dedication to the physical craft of performance was astonishing, a testament to a man who knew that real magic is born from sweat, repetition, and pushing your body past its limits. His collaborators and dancers all tell the same story. Nobody worked harder. His workdays were punishing, often stretching 12 to 14 hours, but it wasn't just the length, it was the intensity packed into every minute. He'd spend hours in grueling dance rehearsals, drilling moves until he was exhausted. Then, when other dancers would collapse, Michael would often head straight to the recording studio to work on new material. His stamina was, by all accounts, unmatched. There's a famous story from the rehearsals for the Bad Tour that says it all. The team had been rehearsing late into the night, running through the entire show. Everyone was exhausted. They were on the final song, Man in the Mirror, when a lighting cue was missed. For anyone else, it's a minor note for the next day. For Michael, it was an imperfection that broke the spell. He stopped everything and calmly said, "Okay, let's take it from the top." He didn't mean the song. He meant the entire 2-hour show. The crew and dancers were stunned, but they did it. They ran the whole show again and again until it was perfect. And this wasn't about being a tyrant. In fact, people who worked with him described him as kind and gentle. This was about his unwavering belief that the audience deserved absolute perfection. For him, a live show was a sacred pact, and any mistake was a betrayal. Collaborator Brad Buxer said of working with him, "Michael was no nonsense. If you were there to work." He'd say, "If you don't sweat, there's nothing." The iconic moonwalk, the move that seemed to defy physics at Motown 25, wasn't a fluke. It took hours of obsessive, solitary practice to perfect. Choreographer Jeffrey Daniel, who helped refine the move with Michael, spoke of his incredible ability to study and master movement. Yet even after the world was stunned by the moonwalk, Michael was famously unhappy with his performance. He cried backstage because he felt it wasn't perfect. He'd wanted to hold his freeze on his toes for longer. That's the mind of a perfectionist. Even in a moment of historic triumph, he could only see the flaw. Choreographer Vincent Patterson, who worked on Smooth Criminal, recalled how Michael would allow an insane amount of time for the creative process. A typical video might rehearse for a week. They would rehearse for 6 weeks or more. This allowed them to layer ideas week after week, constantly refining. He also shared how Michael's sheer energy elevated everyone. During the Beat It video, though he was initially shy, once the music started, his power was so palpable that he took a group of A-list dancers and moved us all up a couple of notches. This obsessive rehearsal was his ritual. It was how he built confidence and exercised the fear of failure. His famous refrain was always, "Let's do it again." Good was never, ever good enough. He became a stage addict. He confessed that on off days during a tour, he'd be up at night dancing anyway. The drive to create and perfect was a compulsion he couldn't switch off. The body was simply the instrument for that chase, and he was willing to push it to its breaking point in the pursuit of that fleeting moment of on-stage divinity. Section 3. The sonic obsession, perfection in the studio. That same insane perfectionism he had on the dance floor, it went into overdrive in the recording studio. Here, he was the absolute master of his own universe, a sonic architect building masterpieces, one microscopic detail at a time. His studio time was almost a spiritual obsession with sonic purity and emotional truth. The making of the Thriller album was a case study in this fanaticism. It wasn't about writing a dozen good songs. Michael wrote or co-wrote a staggering number of tracks, some say over 60, and the team recorded around 30 of them. From this mountain of material, only 9 were deemed worthy. Think about that. Dozens of songs that other artists would have killed for were left on the cutting room floor. The story of Billie Jean is the perfect example. Producer Quincy Jones famously thought the iconic intro was too long and wanted to cut it. Michael refused. He insisted that the long, hypnotic bass line was what made him want to dance, and he fought for it. The song then went through a legendary number of mixes. Some reports claim as many as 91 before he was finally satisfied. 91. Most songs are done after a handful, but for Michael, every single element had to be perfect. His longtime engineer, the legendary Bruce Sweden, shared countless stories of Michael's demanding process. Michael would often record his lead vocals in complete darkness, feeling that it allowed him to focus entirely on his voice and the raw emotion behind the words. It was about creating a pure space where something unfiltered could be captured on tape. His dedication to the vocal performance was absolute. He would spend the night before a recording session memorizing every lyric and nuance. Sweden too affirmed he never saw him read a lyric sheet while singing a lead vocal for a hit single. He came prepared to perform, not just to sing.
Sweden recalled Michael delivering a take that was, by any measure, perfect. But Michael would say, "Bruce, that's perfect, but let's try one more." It wasn't about ego. It was about exploring every possible emotional shading until he found the one that was breathtakingly right. Remarkably, Sweden also stated that in all their years working together, he never once had to use pitch correction on Michael's vocals. His pitch was that precise. What you hear on those records is pure, unadulterated performance. You can hear his movements, the percussive sounds of his body as he danced while he sang. Sweden would even place him on a wooden drum platform to amplify the sounds of his dancing feet, believing those elements were part of the raw energy. This perfectionism was everywhere. He'd create entire rhythm tracks using only his voice, a technique called vocal percussion. He would build elaborate demos in his home studio, mapping out every instrument before ever setting foot in the main studio. He heard the entire song, fully formed in his head. The studio was just where he painstakingly brought that internal symphony into the real world. Even after an album went number one, he was haunted by what he could have done better. The drive was never satisfied. This is why his music endures. It wasn't just produced. It was meticulously and obsessively crafted by a man who believed that perfection wasn't just a goal, but a moral obligation. Section 4. The Student of Legends, Studying the Greats to Become Greater. One of the biggest secrets to Michael Jackson's genius was something you might not expect: humility, an artistic humility. He had an insatiable curiosity and a deep belief that he could learn from everyone who came before him. His mantra was simple: study the greats and become greater. This wasn't passive appreciation. It was an active, obsessive analysis. He dissected the work of his idols not to copy them, but to understand their magic and then transform it into something new. His greatest inspiration was, without question, James Brown. As a kid, Michael was captivated by the Godfather of Soul. He would watch footage of Brown for hours, analyzing every spin, every split, every guttural scream. He saw the mechanics of greatness, how Brown commanded a stage, used his body as a percussive instrument, and brought a crowd to a fever pitch. As a child with the Jackson 5, Michael would stand in the wings of theaters like the Apollo, hidden, studying the masters at work. While his brothers were resting, Michael was in class. He learned Brown's slides and spins, but he didn't just replicate them. He infused them with his own balletic grace, creating a hybrid style that was both explosive and ethereal. He took the raw energy of James Brown and filtered it, making it sharper and more pop-oriented. But his studies weren't limited to one genre. He was obsessed with the elegance of Fred Astaire, to whom he dedicated his autobiography, Moonwalk. He watched Astaire's films endlessly, studying how he used his entire body to tell a story. After Michael's historic Motown 25 performance, Fred Astaire himself called Michael. For Michael, this was one of the highest honors imaginable. The master told Michael he was a hell of a mover and had recorded the performance to watch it again. Astaire even called him an angry dancer, a compliment Michael cherished, understanding it meant he was fueled by that same internal fire that pushes artists to greatness. His library of influences was vast. He studied Jackie Wilson's showmanship, the robotic movements of street dancers, the drama of Marcel Marceau, and even the commanding presence of classical conductors. He saw inspiration everywhere. He revered the Motown process, learning from Berry Gordy how to sweat every detail. He believed that to be the best, you had to surround yourself with the best, which is why he sought out collaborators like Quincy Jones. This constant process of studying was a sign of profound artistic intelligence. He understood that creativity is a conversation across generations. By studying the greats, he was learning the language of entertainment at its highest level. When he stepped on stage, you saw the echoes of James Brown's soul, the grace of Fred Astaire's feet, and the showmanship of Jackie Wilson, all synthesized and reimagined into something that was undeniably Michael. He didn't just stand on the shoulders of giants. He learned how to fly from them. He worked like he had nothing because he felt he was in a constant dialogue with legends, determined to earn his place among them. He wasn't just competing with his contemporaries. He was competing with history. Section 5. The Innovator's Burden. Pushing every boundary. After Thriller, the best-selling album of all time, it would have been so easy for Michael Jackson to just coast. Most artists would have. But for Michael, the success of Thriller didn't satisfy him, it terrified him. It set a bar so impossibly high that he knew he'd be forever judged against it. This was the innovator's burden, the pressure to not just repeat success, but to outdo it. This drive was most visible in his pioneering of music videos, or as he called them, short films. Before Michael, videos were mostly promotional afterthoughts. Michael saw them as a new art form, a way to create a visual world for his music. With Billie Jean, he famously smashed doors down at MTV, which was notorious for not playing black artists. With Beat It, he created a powerful narrative about gang violence, casting real rival gang members for authenticity. And then came Thriller. The 14-minute epic, directed by John Landis, shattered every expectation of what a music video could be. It had a plot, a budget, and iconic choreography. It was a cultural event. But he didn't stop there. The Smooth Criminal short film showcased the legendary anti-gravity lean, a feat of engineering that left audiences baffled. The black or white video pioneered digital morphing technology, a special effect that was breathtaking at the time. He was constantly looking for the next thing, the next technological leap that would bring the images in his head to life. This obsession extended to his live shows. The 1993 Super Bowl halftime show is a perfect example. Before Michael, it was often a dated, low-energy affair. Michael transformed it into the global spectacle it is today. He stood motionless on stage for a full 90 seconds, building unbearable tension before exploding into motion. It was a masterclass in stagecraft. Even late in his career, preparing for the This Is It concerts, that drive was as potent as ever. At 50 years old, he was planning the most technologically advanced arena show ever. Word from his team was that he was even developing a brand new dance move, something to rival the moonwalk, meant to be unveiled on that tour. He wasn't content to just play the hits. He had to give the world something new. This constant need to push forward was a tremendous weight. He was in a competition with his own legacy. He once told an interviewer, "You ain't seen nothing yet." It was both a promise and a personal mantra. He worked like he had nothing because he knew that in the world of animation, your last achievement is ancient history. All that matters is what you do next. Conclusion: the hunger that never faded. The story of Michael Jackson's work ethic is a giant paradox. Here was a man who achieved a level of fame that's almost impossible to comprehend. He was the undisputed king of pop. He had everything a person could want. And yet he worked with the desperate, clawing hunger of a young artist just starting out. This relentless drive was his gift and his curse. It was forged in a difficult childhood,
honed through thousands of hours of punishing rehearsals and perfected in the darkness of the recording studio. It was fueled by a deep study of the masters and the constant need to outdo himself. He never was satisfied. After his most celebrated performances, he saw only the flaws. After his most successful albums, he heard only what could have been better. This internal engine of divine dissatisfaction is what made him great. It's what pushed him to create art that was timeless. The world saw the magic and the effortless grace, but behind the curtain was a man toiling in the night, a man who understood that greatness isn't a gift, it's earned. It's earned through sacrifice, repetition, and a painful commitment to your craft. Michael Jackson worked like he had nothing, because in his heart, he was always that little boy from Gary, Indiana, reaching for the stars. And even when he had captured them all, he just kept reaching. His life is the ultimate lesson. True genius isn't about what you have, it's about how badly you want it. Michael's story is more than just success. It's a masterclass in what it takes to be great. If you were inspired by this look into the mind of the King of Pop, do us a favor and hit that like button, subscribe for more stories behind the music, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Now, we want to hear from you. What's your favorite Michael Jackson moment that proves he was one of a kind? Let us know in the comments below.